All right, this haircut is the uniform layer haircut. I'm going to do it on long hair, so it's going to be a little different than the one that we did in class. But we're going to section the head into 4 sections. Again, I did my safety and sanitation. I sanitized my hands. I set up all my equipment before I started the haircut and did my consultation, examined her scalp, prostate elasticity, asked her what kind of medication she's on, how she takes care of her hair, because I need to know. I'm going to drop down the perimeter, divide it into 4, apex to ear, nose to nape, drop down my 1/2 inch perimeter around the entire head. This cut's very important that you have your perimeter down and that we discuss with our client how short they want it. Because if we take it too short, if we don't take the perimeter down and determine how short they want it, then we're not making our client very happy, and that's really our goal. So I'm going to have my 4 sections again with the perimeter down the around the entire hairline, so about 1/2 inch, so I have enough guide that I can see what I'm doing so that I can create this haircut. So again, around the entire perimeter, 1/2 inch down, nose to nape, apex to ear for sectioning. Clip the hair up out of the way so it's easy to work with. And clip up, section it up. Nice clean sections. This is going to be your state board haircut. You are going to make sure that you do nice clean partings and nice clean sectioning so that when they are examining you, they can tell that you've done a nice job and that you've done clean sections. Again, all the way around the entire perimeter, take down a 1/2 inch parting. We are going to refine the perimeter at the end, but if we create it first, we're just going to go back and see that we didn't cut any holes in it or cut part of our guide off. So let's say that your client just wants a trim. You're going to go through, but the actual uniform layer itself means that the hair is the same length all over the head. So I'm going to look and I'm going to measure to see where my hair is. Now granted, I did the increased up, I did the increased forward, so I have some little shorter pieces in the front here. I'm going to take that, but every time I measure, I'm going to start underneath the hair at the scalp and measure. So I'm a good 7, probably 12 inches long. So 7 plus 6, I'm actually 13 inches long. So I'm going to take her down to about 12. You have to take 1 inch off for your boards, so you need to take that into consideration. So I'm 7 back here. So I'm only about 10 in the nape. So let's see where we are at the top. Then I'm going to take a little section up here. I'm going to see how long she is on top. That'll help me determine how long to take her as well, how short to take her, how long to leave her. So again, my comb is 7. I'm going to add on another almost 6 inches. So I'm probably going to take her to about 11 inches. So if I want to do that, I'm going to do 7. Add another 4 on here. So taking off a good couple inches. So I'm going to take off my length up here. All right, so I know where I am there. So 7. And another 3. Good. So 10 inches, I'm going to check my nape, make sure I'm right around there. I'm going to have my client look down. Make sure she's nice and wet again, and have her look down. Make sure that she's not cross-legged, not tilted to one side or another. Make sure that my partings are straight. So I'm going to take about 1 inch off my back. Again, remember, check your perimeter. You can do about palm to palm. This is going to be a mobile design line. So we're going to create our design line and we're going to move it around the head. At that point, we're going to keep that guide that we cut in the apex always in our section that we're cutting. Making sure I can see my guide from the previously cut section so that I cut it to the correct design line. Again, once it gets to the sides, if her hair is shorter, I'm not going to have to worry about her shoulder being in the way. But I always want to make sure that my sections are nice and even as I'm cutting through. I'm trying to keep palm to palm. I'm trying to stay out of the camera so you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm adjusted my cutting hand position just a little bit. For the sides, I'm going to have her, because her hair is longer at this point, again, I'm going to have her look over the side. She's slightly tilted. Take that into account. Cut palm to palm. Got my entire side. And I'm going to have her look over her other shoulder. So I cross-checked to make sure that my back two corners were the same. Making sure that I'm using my guide from the back as I work my way around the head. All right, so my guide on the side is not meeting. So when it comes to cutting the front of the head, I'm going to use my guide from my sides to meet that. So just depending on where she's at, I want to cut down to that angle. Making sure she's nice and wet. And take this center section here. And I'm going to cut it to my guide. So I want it to be about 10 inches. So I'm going to cut a couple inches off. So then this becomes my guide for moving. So then I separate it back out. I'm going to take my guide from back here on the sides. I'm going to use that to work forward or to work down, just depending on. So I'm going to angle it. So I come down to the side here. Take my next section, let that top part fall out, angle it down to my sides here, holding it at 0 degrees or natural fall. Following it all the way down till nothing meets my guide. So I have a little bit here as I come through. Nice and even. Be careful that you don't have too much in your hands because you can actually cut your guide off. So you want to be careful how much hair you're holding in your hand, that you're not bunching it up. So very important. So I have my guide in the center here. I'm going to use that to work down. Over directing my fingers, so my fingers are kind of pointing up. I know I'm going to head down here. Sorry guys. Angling my fingers down. Over directing this. See how my part line comes down from the side because that's the way her hair growth is. I'm going to hold my fingers like that, making sure I don't have too much hair in my hand. There's my guide down here and my guide up here. So I should be standing directly in front of my work, trying to stay out of the camera. I'm running out of guide. I have guide here, I have guide here. I'm going to cut that down. I'm going to go back and cross check. Make sure that she's even. Hold it down right to left. Hold it down right to left. Follow it all the way through down to my sides. Now I'm going to create a guide using that centerpiece that I cut to determine how long I want my top to be. I'm going to utilize that, this, and the guide that I cut in the back. So I'm going to take a small parting off down the entire center of the head. along that center part line that I created from apex to ear. Or excuse me, nose to nape. So remember, this section, this piece right here, stays in every single section that you're cutting. We're going to follow that all the way down. All the way down from the apex to the nose or to the front hairline, and all the way down to the center of the head, from the apex all the way down to the nape. I want to make sure I have my nape in there. I do. I'm going to still leave that guideline down, so I have that as part of my cuts. I'm going to section it up. Now I'm going to use this front hairline, this top, and this bottom as all my guides, and I'm basically going to play connect the dots. So I'm going to hold this up, find where I cut, hold this front up, find where I cut. Now this is a 90 degrees, so wherever I'm around the head, I'm going to use my comb to determine where 90 degrees from the head is. I'm going to lower my client down just a little bit because I don't want my arms above my shoulders for too long, so I need to lower my client down. We really want to think about ergonomics. We want to be able to last in this industry. So make sure I have a nice clean part line, only that little bitty section in the front center as my guide. So 90 degrees from the head up here, angles forward like that. So I'm going to take that, hold it straight out at 90 degrees, and I'm going to cut. This time I'm cutting on top of my fingers. I'm going to grab the next section and make sure that I'm 90 degrees from the head. So I have a dot here and a dot here. I'm going to meet those. A point here, I'm going to take that off. So a section here, section here, checking, section here, checking. Now I have this guide from the top and I'm going to follow that all the way down to the bottom. So I have a couple things that I can do. I can either cut from the top down or I can cut from the bottom up. So I need to think about that. Where am I going to be in the head? So 90 degrees, if I hold this straight up, find my guide from the front there, follow the round of the head, I'm going to push that out of my way. I'm going to take this next section, making sure that I'm 90 degrees or straight out from the head, holding it straight out. Take that section, throw it out of the way. Finding my previously cut guide here, holding it 90 degrees from the head. Make sure I'm not cutting it off. I'm going to follow that all the way down to the nape. Make sure I have that bottom guide in there. I'm going to play connect the dots again, remember. Where's my bottom guide? Here's my top guide. Have too much in my hand. Need to drop some of that out. So my guide's up here. My guide, I'm working down to it. I'm going to have her look down just a smidge so that I can make sure I can see my guide in the back of the head here. Really thinking about body position, where I'm standing. I'm still cutting on top of my fingers. So I have my bottom guide here. Where am I going? I just have to meet those two guides. So there's my bottom, there's my top. Just have these little stragglers there. Now, depending on if I'm right-handed, I can work one way. If I'm left-handed, I can work the other way. So I just need to think about where I want to go from here. I'm going to begin my cut in the back. So I have a couple options. I can section this whole bottom out and cut that different palm to palm, which I'll show you what that looks like, or I can follow through and keep cutting on top of my fingers. So now I'm going to utilize my previously cut guide, which is here in the center. I want to go back and cross-check that, make sure I don't have any points or anything around the head. Make sure it's nice and rounded as I work my way up the head. Check to see that there's no points. Following it all the way up to this front section here. Looks good. So I'm going to part it back, apex to ear. I'm going to keep the back and the front in the front. I'm going to work my way to the right because I'm right-handed. I'm going to utilize that guide that I just cut. So that's going to be part of my new parting. So I'm going to keep that guide that I cut, and I'm going to take kind of an angled parting, but I'm keeping that apex in there the whole time. I'm going to take it up mine all the way down through the bottom here so you can see what that looks like. And I'm going to start cutting at the bottom. Now I want to make sure I can see my guide as I pull the hair through. Let that bottom part fall off. Comb it off to the side, clip it up, whatever you want to do. If I want to clip it off so that I can go back to cut it later, I can do that, definitely. So keeping this in here, I can cut palm to palm here, making sure I can see my guide as I cut through. There's my guide. Working my way down this time, making sure I have nice clean partings as I work my way through the haircut. From there, I'm going to adjust my body, step to the side, making sure I have a nice clean part line. Starting where that layer is from the bottom, recombing. I let that bottom part fall out, make sure I have my guide in there. Make sure I can see my guide. See how my guide popped up when I rocked that hair back? I'm going to cut to my guide. Working my way up the head. Making sure I can see my guide. Using the fine teeth of my comb to section. This time again, I'm cutting on top of my fingers. That I have my first guide in there, that I can see it all the way to the top of the head. That's one option. Otherwise, I can start from the top and work my way down. Another option. Again, I always have that apex in there. That section that I cut is always part of this cut. I'm going to start at the top this time to show you what that looks like. Here's my guide. I'm going to cut to my guide, work my way down the head, take a little bit of the last section and a little bit of the new section. I'm going to take a slightly bigger parting because I don't really have any hair to cut. Again, that apex is still in there. Working my way around the head. Combing this hair off to the side, keep it out of my way. If I want, I can clip it out of the way, up to you. I start at the top of the head again, switching to the fine teeth of my comb. Finding my guide, holding it straight up. Not sure about my guide if I wrap it around my fingers. Again, holding it straight up. I'm going to drop that part of that section out, take a little bit of that, work my way down around to the head. Making sure that I'm at 90 degrees, making sure I can see my guide. Drop that part out, keep this part that I'm working on. Working my way down the head, holding it out. Again, making sure I can see my guide. Cutting. I want to make sure that I'm holding my section that I'm cutting between those two part lines, not shifting one way or the other. If I shift it away, I'm going to get shorter. If I pull it back, I'm going to get longer as I get to behind the ear. So this bottom part here, I'm going to switch. The fingers are pointing straight up to the ceiling if I'm doing palm to palm in the bottom. I need to find my guide in here. I'm going to cut to my guide, so fingers are straight up, hand is straight down. So literally these are pointing to the ceiling. I'm not twisting, I'm not turning, keeping them straight. All right, I'm going to keep my part here at the top, right at that top center. Take a new section with the old piece, part of the old section that I just cut. Move that off to the side. Keep that top portion in there. Bring it down. I'm going to do my entire cut. Fingers up. Find my guide in there. Cut to my guide. Work my way up the head. Making sure I can see my design line. And cut. Don't just cut if you don't see your design line or if you don't think that there's anything to cut. Again, keeping that apex, a little bit of the last section I cut. Part that off to the side. I have nice straight partings. Very important. Again, I'm taking another angle part. Nice straight parting, including that apex section that I started with. Holding my hair straight out between these two sections. Holding it down, making sure I can see my design line. Working my way up, making sure that I'm always at 90 degrees. Again, making sure I can see my design line. Following the round of the head. Again, a little bit of the last section that I cut. Comb the previously cut out of the way. Take a clean parting. Shouldn't be probably more than an inch wide. Less than that ideally. You have a hard time staying between your two part lines if you actually go too big. Okay, make sure I have my design line. Working my way up the head again, checking for my design line. Following the round of the head, so I'm staying at 90 degrees, making sure again that I can see where I'm supposed to be cutting. Up to the top of the head, nothing to cut. Again, a little bit of that last section, part it off, make it nice and clean. Take a new section, new hair that hasn't been cut as part of our old section. Hold it out 90 degrees, hold it to the bottom, find my design line. Again, following it up the round of the head. If I need to knock that hair out of the way, I can do that. Don't want to cut beyond my second knuckle. I don't want to cut myself. Following up the round of the head. And again, part of the last section I cut, comb that out of the way. Nice straight partings. New section. 90 degrees from the head, so straight down. Make sure I can see my design line. Work my way up the round of the head. Nothing nothing to cut on this top section, it looks like. Again, the apex is always part of it. Now here, where we get to this section that's right behind the ear that goes straight up and down, I need to think about some things. If I take too big a section, I'm going to cut my guide off and my client's going to have a hole. So we're going to do a little bit of over direction with the longer hair. If someone has really short hair, it's not going to matter because you're going to go pretty short. But here by the ear, I'm going to over direct a little bit. So I'm going to hold this up until my bottom design line falls out. I don't want to cut it. Again, making sure I can see my design line. Working my way around the head. I'm pivoting from this top section right here. Again, making sure I can see my guide. Working my way up to the top of the head. Again, taking a little bit of that last section that I cut. And a little bit of the new section. Okay, I'm still in that big chunk right behind the ear. It's not that big a parting, but this is the whole perimeter. So I could cut everything off there if I wasn't careful. So this is where I'm going to over direct. I'll let that bottom section fall out. Find my guide. Make sure that I can see my guide, that I'm holding it between those two partings as I work my way up to the top. Now into this last section behind the ear. Again, I have the apex as part of that section. Take this whole section right behind the ear here. Again, I'm going to over direct that bottom guide so I don't cut it off. Check for the rest of my guide though. Holding it 90 degrees from the head, making sure I'm cutting to my guide. Then I'm going to cross-check this section. I could have checked as I was working my way along. I really want to make sure that my haircut's even before I work my way through the rest of it. I'm going to comb it straight up where it is. Got these little ones there. I'm going to go back and cut those. So don't cut at the opposite direction that you cross-checked. Only cut the same way that you cut. If you start going in to cut horizontally, you're going to end up with lines in your haircut, and your client's not going to like it. They're not going to be able to get rid of it. Again, cross-checking, holding it straight out from where it is in the head, and at what angle you cut it around the head. Got some little stragglers here. I'm going to go back and find those. So where it is, go back and find it. Hold it out at that 90 degrees. See where they are. And I don't see them now. So my entire right side, back right side is cut. So once I go from there, I use that initial guide that I had from the center that I cut from the top to the bottom. I'm going to use that on my left side as I work my way around. So I can stand on the same side. If I feel like I would see my guide better, I can switch other sides so that I'm standing so my guide is to me instead of away from me. Just depends on what you're comfortable with. Again, I'm not, as long as you're getting the results that you want, I'm okay with that. So I took off a clean parting here. I'm going to keep my left side out of the way as I work my way around the head. So now I have my center parting in there. I have my guide at the bottom. I'm going to take a clean parting. Again, that apex is included in there. That section is included in there. Nice clean parting. I'm going to make sure I hold it out between my two part lines. Make sure I can see my design line here through the bottom. That I'm using the fine teeth of my comb. Again, making sure I can see my design line. Working my way up the round of the head, 90 degrees. I'm not sure, I can always take more hair in there. Can't really see, my client has pretty thin hair, so I'm having a hard time seeing my design line. There it is. Again, I want to stay between these two part lines, holding it straight out, finding my design line, and cutting the hair. Working my way up again around the round of the head, staying 90 degrees from where that section of hair is from the top of the head. Again, this is my newly cut section. I'm going to take a new parting off, but I'm going to keep a little bit of that old section in there. So my old design line is now moving with me. Again, finding my design line. Following it around the round of the head, making sure I can see it. If I need to rock the hair out of the way, I can sure do that. Making sure that I'm 90 degrees from the round of the head, working my way up. Holding it straight up when I get to the top of the head. And there again, I'm going to take a new parting off. A little bit of my previous design line, again keeping that apex section in there, combing the hair out of the way, finding my design line at the bottom here, cutting to my design line, working my way up the head, keeping the hair at the 90 degrees from where it belongs in the head, staying between those two part lines as I hold it out. Moving around the head and pivoting around the head. Taking nice clean partings, including that previous design line in there. Nine degrees from the bottom of the head, find my design line. Working my way up the head. Again, another pivotal parting. I'm into that section right behind the ear. So now here's where I really want to think about, because my client has long hair, I don't want to cut her a hole. So I really need to over direct this bottom part so I don't cut all of that off. I have nice straight part lines. I'm going to over direct that till my bottom guide falls out. So pretty much everything fell out of the bottom. I still have a design line that I can cut to. Staying between those two part lines, see my design line. Working my way up to the top of the head so that I'm following that 90 degrees as I work my way up. And at the top, I have one section that's right behind the ear here. Take that straight section down, a little bit of the previously cut guide again. Nice straight part lines. Again, I'm still in this area right by the ear. I want to be careful I don't cut her a hole. So I'm going to over direct this bottom till that bottom falls out. I still have a design line I can cut to. Working my way up the head. Now I'm going to cross check my right and my left. Make sure my client's head's on straight. I'm going to go straight across. I'm going to hold directly out from where it is on the head. Again, taking a nice clean part. I want to make sure I have a nice even cut. Follow that around the head. Working my way down the section, again, holding it out directly where it's from in the head. Got a little section here where I didn't cut to my design line. So this is where maybe I want to go palm up so I can see my design line in there. There it is. Gotta be careful I don't cut my palm. And again, holding it out at night. All right, from here we're going to move to the front. So I've cross-checked my right and my left sides to make sure they were even. Comb this down to make sure I didn't cut myself any holes or cut my client any holes, and work myself to the front of the head. Now I've already created a design line from the front of the hairline to the apex. Again, I want to make sure that my client's hair is nice and wet. She should be looking straight ahead at this time, and she should not have her legs crossed. So I already have my design line cut, and it's going to still pivot off that apex section that I cut. So making sure that my client's head's on straight, which she doesn't look like it in the video. Shifter. Take a little bit of the back, a little bit of the front. And hold it out 90 degrees, find my design line, and cut. Work my way up to the top of the head. Following my design line. From there, I'm going to take that section that I just cut and a little portion of a new section and hold it out 90 degrees from the head. Cut to my design line. Shift and adjust so I'm 90 degrees from wherever that hair is from on the head. Again, apex to the front hairline, a little bit of the previously cut guide. So my client's probably looking down at this point just because she doesn't want hair in her eyes. Go ahead and cutting to my design line. My client is definitely pretty tall for me. I'm going to see if I can lower her down even a smidge more. If this is you and your client is a lot taller than you when they're sitting in the chair, you may have to ask them to scoot their bottom forward so that they can scoot down just a little bit. So again, previously cut design line. Making sure I'm cutting to my guide. So I'm standing off to the side of her. I'm working my way around the head. Again, cutting to my design line, making sure I can see it. Rotating so I'm 90 degrees from the head. Really need to make sure I've kept that tension if I'm going to drop it down. I don't know if you noticed that while I was cutting, I've actually dropped it down a smidge just so that I can see what I'm doing. So really thinking about where you are in the head. All right, so I'm above the ear here, pretty darn close. I want to be careful that I don't cut off my design line. Over direct it, make sure I can see my design line. Holding it straight up from the head. Now I'm to that section that's just over the ear, so I have a little bit of the front, a little bit of the back. Hopefully those two meet and I don't have too much to cut off in between. So again, I'm going to over direct it. I have just a few hairs in there. So luckily my two guides met, which is what my goal was. Now I'm going to cross check that. So this time, because I took my partings like this, I'm going to take my subsections and cross check at the angle. So I want to make sure that my front and my back meet. And remember, I have to think about where that 90 is from the head. Again, do not cut this way. If you find that you have some areas that need to cut, you need to go back where that parting was. We are going to refine the perimeter afterwards, just to make sure there's no holes around the edges. I don't want to cut like this if I see, oh, there's a chunk here. Could be that they have a really strong recession in that part that I left longer. I've actually cut off. Sorry, that hair was just hanging there. It wasn't length to remove. All right, so the left side is very similar to the rest of the haircut, except we change our body position once we get to the outside of the eye. So getting that hair out of my client's face, separating that out. And now that guide that I cut from the front of the hairline to the apex is my guide that I use again on the opposite side of the head. So I take a little bit of that center part that I had. Always this apex guide is in here. Holding it straight up from the head, making sure I can see my design line, cutting forward this time. However, I am still moving to the shape of the head. So 90 degrees as I come to the front here. Again, apex, part of my section from the previously cut guide. It's mobile, it's working its way around the head. When I have nice straight part lines. "90 degrees from the head, I will still want to make sure that I'm holding the hair in between those two part lines. Working my way to the round of the head. Making sure her hair is staying damp. Again, finding my design line at the top here. Recombing, don't just cut. Make sure that it's nice and flat. Again, moving to the round of the head, 90 degrees. I'm going to shift it forward here, cutting to my design line. Keeping that apex section in there. Nice clean partings. 90 degrees from the head. So if I'm not sure where it is, lay my comb on the head to see where that is in my angle. Shifting it as it follows around to the head. All right, so now I'm about to the outside of the eye. Now I'm going to change my body position and I'm going to start standing to the side of her. This helps me see my design line, but it also helps with ergonomics for your body. So clipping that out of the way, keeping that apex part of my guide. Let's shift my client a smidge here. So now I'm in front of my client cutting. Oops, as her head falls off. This way I can see my design line as I'm cutting and make sure that I follow the round of the head again. Making sure that I'm not taking too big of sections because I can cut my guide off then. Trying to keep the hair out of her face. Taking a parting off, keeping that apex section in there. Making sure I'm 90 degrees from the head that I can see my guide. Working my way up. If someone wants a short spiky cut, the uniform layer is a good idea for that. You don't have to worry about cutting holes in it because we're keeping it short and spiky. However, with someone with longer hair and uniform layer, you don't want to cut off the outside perimeter of your guide. That's why we determine what our perimeter is first and what our client wants to have when she's done. If we don't do that, we end up cutting her too short around the perimeter and then she's not happy. So we definitely need to figure that out before we go in and do our cut. And again, I'm following my design line all the way around the head. Nice clean partings. trying to protect my client's face, keeping that apex section in there. Making sure I'm cutting to my design line. Again, I'm getting close by the ear here. I probably have a couple more sections. And then I want to be careful that I over direct by the ear so I don't cut her too short. All right, so I'm already somewhat into this back section that's been cut before. I have this front section right by the ear that I'm going to have to cut. So again, starting to over direct so that bottom part drops out so I don't cut her a hole around her perimeter. And I think we have our front and our back section right here. So let's hope they meet. Pretty close, there's just a couple hairs there. All right, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to cross-check my haircut. I want to make sure that my client is facing the mirror straight on, that her head's on straight, so that when I check her cut that I'm not throwing off the balance again. Again, holding straight up, 90 degrees. I missed one section here. It's very important to go back and check. So that's good. I can find that little angle that I missed. There it is. So again, checking my right to my left. So I work my way back up the haircut. Hard to see with my jacket on in the back, but it's even. So straight across, that's good. I've already checked my right side, but I am going to check my left side all the way through to the back, pulling that up, making sure that it's even as it works its way back. Again, same thing. Good. Now I'm going to check my perimeter. I need to make sure that I didn't cut any holes or that she doesn't have any shorter spots around the edge. So I'm literally going to comb it all down, check everything, make sure there's no holes. As I work my way around the haircut. So far, so good in the front. I have a little section here that I didn't quite cut to my guide. I'm going to go back in and refine that. Palm to palm. So at this stage in my hydraulic, I would pump my client up to make sure that she's even. So I've checked my entire haircut, left to right, right to left, front to back, as I worked my way around the head. And then I still want to go through and check that she's even around the edges. So far, so good. I want to check that she's even length side to side, holding it up, making sure it's nice and even. Oops. So it looks good. So I've cross-checked her. I checked out my perimeter. I cross-checked front to back, right to left to make sure that my client was even, and then I checked to make sure there was no holes cut around the perimeter. If they were, I would go in and clean them up. One of the things with this cut that I didn't do today is generally we notch around the perimeter. My lady is a little bit longer, so I didn't notch around her perimeter, but if I was going to go in and notch, I would just go in and put the comb in, the shear in at a point. I cut when I pull out. Again, put the comb in. I'm laying the shear right on my finger, notching it out as I'm working my way around the haircut. So that is the uniformly layered cut. This is on shorter hair. Looks a little bit different on longer. This is on longer hair. It looks a little bit different on shorter hair.